I say, sir, sorry, the counter, is it under counter or under the first?
The counter slice it inside the reducer, and in this case of toolkit, we'll call the reducer the slice, because the reducer now, unlike in the former Redux where you have the reducer, then you have the action, so the two of them are different. In Redux toolkit, we have what we call a slice that has both the reducer and the actions. Okay, so we're going to create a slice that will manage the state of this counter component. Okay, so we simply get back to make sure you click here, or that you're on this folder. You can be on any of them. If you click on the counter.js, then it will create a new file on the same level as the counter.js, which is what you want. So I'm going to click on this, then I'm going to type in the counter slice .js. So that is going to be the counter slice, which is going to be the reducer that will help us change the state and manage the state. So this very counter slice is going to be referenced in our store, so that state will now become in our general store, and every component in this app can easily see that very state, and which is going to lead us to building very beautiful things in future. If you have any questions, you can ask before we'll continue. Sorry, I don't know whether it's from my own volume. I can't hear you, especially when you. Okay, I think my volume was down. Say it again, sorry, please.
I say, sir, sorry, the counter, is it under counter or under the first?
The counter slice is on the same level with the counter.js. That means it is inside the counter folder, and that counter folder is inside the features folder.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. So these are the things that will make your app not to run when we start testing it. So that's why I'm taking my time to point it out. So make sure you create where it is supposed to be. Very, very important. I don't know whether we are through with this one. This one will just simply run the script. So we are through with it. Then we can get our counter slide that we just created. Okay, now we are in our counter slides, and we say that in Redux toolkit, in the former Redux, we used to have our reducer separate from our actions. But the boilerplate was so large that people were being discouraged. People were actually discouraged from using Redux, and some would prefer to use Remix, Context API, and other state management systems. So that's why the creators of Redux looked to solving the problem of huge boilerplate in just trying to just initially set up Redux. So they now did Redux toolkit, which from my own point of view is also still confusing at some level, but that's what we have to just make do with for now. But with time, I believe that they will find a way of still simplifying it. So let's work on the counter slides, okay? So in building your own project, if you're going to be having profile, you're going to be having maybe profile, you're going to be having account information. All of them are going to have their own components and their slides and their various slices that will help manage this state. Okay. So in order for us to create a slide, we need a function known as create slide that we're going to be getting from the Redux toolkit module that we installed. So in order to do this, we simply say import, named import, and the name of the function we want to import is known as create slice. Create slice. And where are we getting it from? We are getting it from the very at Redux/toolkit that we had earlier installed. You remember when we started, we did npm install at redux.js/toolkit together with npm install react redux. So from these two very good models, we are going to be importing a whole lot of things that we're going to be using in this very Redux toolkit exercise. Okay, so once we've imported this function that we want to use in creating the slice, we should start creating the slice. But you know that in using Redux, Redux takes in the initial state, works on that very initial state, and produces a new state. So Redux, what it does, or I mean reducer actually, what a reducer does is to take in an initial state, then depending on the action that is fired, or depending on the action that is dispatched, it uses its function to work on that state and give us our final state. So we have to note the initial state of the counter. And we all know from our previous exercise that we did that the initial state of a count is always 0, but you can actually start from 4 or from another number, but it's always good to start from 0. So let's declare the initial state. So we're simply going to say const initial state. Please, anytime I make an error in my spelling, you have to let me know in time so that we don't run into wahala. Okay, so I'm going to have count is the only state we are considering for now, and we are giving it a value of 0. So let's start with count for now, and let's assign that state to 0. So if we have other states, we are going to also put them here. So you simply put comma and put other states if you want to change other states, but we are not going to get this complicated. We start with only count for now, then later we can work on other things. So that is our initial state. So once we've declared our initial state, why we declare the initial state first is because we are going to be using it in our reducer. So once we declare that, let's start creating our slides. So we simply say export const counter slides. So this slides is actually counter slides. But in order to create it, we need to use the function that we just installed, or we just brought in, we imported. And the name of that function is what we call create slides. So we're using create slides to do this. Okay, so this create slides is gonna take in an object of some things. So amongst those things will be, first of all, the name of these very slides. And we're going to name it just like the name of the component, but this time around in small letter. We're going to name it counter. That's the name of this slide. So that's the first thing it will take. So apart from the name, it's going to take your initial state, which you had earlier specified. Initial state. Then after the initial state, now you're going to write your reducers. So I said that every slice we have the reducers, which are going to be taken in actions. Okay, so depending on the action, the reducer will fire off a function. So this reducer is going to be an object that will now have the various actions. So for a counter app, what kind of actions do we expect a counter app to perform? So from the user use state that we practiced earlier,
increment,
please.
increase and decrease.
Yeah.
We set it to default.
Thank you.
Increase and decrease.
Increment and decrease. Yeah, thank you very much. We are following from what we did before. Very, very important. So the various reducers are going to be number one. We are going to try increment. Okay. So this very increment is going to take in state. So this is a function, so make sure you write it very well. So it's going to take in the state, and we're using arrow function. So what do we expect it to do? We expect it to take in any state that is there, which is our initial state for now, which is 0. Then let us say state dot count. So it's taking in the count state and it's adding 1 to it. And we know there are many ways of adding 1. So we can use the plus equal to 1, or we can use the plus plus. So these are various ways of doing increments. So I'm going to just leave it with this plus plus that it is using already. So this is one action, but we can still have another action this time. Call it decrement. And this very action decrement is also going to take in the initial state, and we all know that this state is 0 for now. I'll put it initial state because it's going to be changing, so we don't call it 0. So what do we do in this very action? What do you want to be done when the action of decrement is dispatched? We simply want the state. And what state are we picking out? The count. Want it to decrement. So instead of saying minus minus, you can actually write minus equal to. It will still give you the same thing. Or you can even write state dot count equal to state dot count plus 1. That's another way of writing it. So there are many ways you can write it, but we can use this abbreviation to make it cleaner. Okay, so we have two actions in this reducer. Okay, so that is good now. So once we've done this, the next thing we are supposed to do will be to export these actions. So I'm simply going to say export const. So what actions am I exporting? I'm exporting first of all the increment action and the decrement action. So those are the two actions I'm exporting, and I'm exporting them by destructuring them from my counter slide.actions. Okay, so once you finish exporting the actions, you have to export the reducer itself. Very, very importantly. So I'm going to also say export, but this time around, this one is going to be a default export. So I'm going to say export default counter slice dot reducer. Okay, so with this, I will do Ctrl S to save and know that I'm done with my counter slice. Very importantly, You have to import the create slide, which is the function with which you're going to be creating your slides. You're going to declare your initial state, and then you create your slides and put in the following things. Number one, the name of the reducer, the initial state, and the reducers, which are the actions and the very functions that the reducer is performing on that very action. So once the action is an increment action, this is the reducer. Once it is a decrement action, this is the reducer function that you want to be performed. Okay, so once you're done doing that, export them. So later we're going to be adding more actions to these, and you're going to see how simple it is to add further actions. So always lay it out in a simple way first, then later you can do more things. Okay, then export the action. Okay, please do.
Yeah, the last line where you exported the reducer, is it reducer without the S or with an S?
No, without X. Just exactly the way I wrote it.
Okay. Because inside our counter slides, the reducer we have there is with an S, so it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter. This one now is telling you that there is actually an object of reducer inside counter slides, just like there is an object of actions inside counter slides. So that's what it means.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So please, I'm going to give us a while to get this code written well. You can see that after all the writing, when you check out my terminal, there's no error. If you finish your own, you're seeing error, then you can ask me questions so that we'll clear it out before we continue.
State, is it in a normal bracket or curly bracket?
Which of them, please?
Increment.
Okay, so this is increment. The first one we have is normal bracket where the state is in. Then we'll have our curly bracket that has the function to perform, the reducer function to be performed. So like we said that the reducer or the slice, somebody might ask what is a reducer, what is a what are actions. So in a slice, the difference between the old Redux and the new one is that you now have the slide. This is your slide. So inside your slide, you have your actions. Then you also have the reducer functions there. So all of them are together. All of them are together inside the slice. So you're having a slice of the counter. You're going to be having a slice of the post. You're going to be having a slice of the blog, slice of your account, slice of profile. So all these slices are going to be brought together inside the store. So making the store to now be seeing everything happening in all the areas of the application. So anybody that needs anything will just go to the store alone and grab that. And that same thing will be working in its own company. That's how it's going to be working, right? together. Do we continue? So please, like I said, be checking your terminal. Once your terminal is good, then we are good with you. Okay, wonderful developers. I'm gonna move forward now. I believe that we are done doing this. Okay, so once you're done creating your slides, now you've known you have a slide. In order for your store to know that you have these slides, you have to reference it in the store. So I'm going to go back to the store.js, because in this store you're supposed to house all the states, and we know that the states are in the slices. So let me bring in that very counter reducer inside this very store, so that it will be in the app level state. Okay, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to simply import. What do I want to import? I want to import the counter slice here. So I'm going to simply give it this temporary length name known as what? Counter reducer. So that's the name I'm going to give it.